friends, I'm Lauren Bernick, and I'm flipping the script about growing older. My guests have been influencers since before that was even a thing. Welcome to the Anti-Aging Podcast. Welcome to Age Like a Badass Mother. The third act of life is all about embracing your gifts and finally being all of who you were meant to be. That definitely includes having meaningful work. What if you don't have meaningful work and want to pivot? Stay tuned, we're covering that. Today's guest, Mary Olson-Menzel, is an executive leadership coach, breast cancer survivor, founder and CEO of the company MVP Executive Development, which is a national leadership, coaching, and organizational management consultancy whose clients range from Fortune 500 companies to startups in the world of media, tech, and the NFL, to name a few. Most recently, she has added author to her resume. Her new book, What Lights You Up? Illuminate Your Path and Take the Next Big Step in Your Career, is available now wherever you buy your books. And I have to tell you, it's a good read. You will learn a ton, especially if you're over 50 and you're trying to find meaningful work or pivot. Mary says your inner light is your superpower. It's what makes you memorable, draws people to you, and benefits your work and personal life. Tapping into your light will allow you to thrive in an ever-changing working world. Please welcome my guest, Mary Olson-Menzel. Hi, Mary. Welcome.
Hi, thank you, Lauren. So good to be here.
Yes, it's so good to have you. I really did enjoy your book because I've I've read a lot. I like to read business books, first of all, and I like to read all kinds of books, but it really caught my eye because a lot of my friends, I think, are going through this thing where, once they're over 50 or over 55, they really want to have a job that they love that's really meaningful to them. So I thought, you're kind of filled with some good information. Can you tell a little bit of your story about, how you got to this point in your life? You've had a really fascinating track.
Yes, I've pivoted quite a few times in my own life. Started my career as a television reporter and quickly pivoted, was kind of fell into a role in recruiting. And it was really interesting because the synergies between being a television reporter and going into recruiting was so like aligned because I went into reporting the news because I was innately curious about the story and who somebody was and what drove them. And then going right into recruiting, it was the same thing. What's driving them? How can I help them find a job? And then through the years, I worked in tech and then media and ended up, kind of transitioning from recruiting into executive coaching. And what I found, Lauren, was that at that time in my life, when I transitioned into a lot more leadership and executive coaching, that was what was lighting me up. And so I truly decided, you know what, I have to put my money where my mouth is. I have to give myself the same advice that I give to my clients and do what lights me up. And so I transitioned to full-time executive coaching. And when I was doing that, I took the wisdom that I had gained as a recruiter, as an executive recruiter, and I created a 10-step methodology that we call the MVP 360 pivot program. And in this pivot program are essentially the points that are in the book. And we were having such success taking executives through this pivot program that they started saying, can you talk to my husband? Can you talk to my wife? Can you talk to
Mhm.
my son? Can you talk to my daughter, my niece, my nephew, anyone? This would be really helpful for them. And so I couldn't clone myself. I have a small but mighty team, and we kind of wanted to keep it that way. And so I decided to write this book. And my book is the gift to the world. And I wrote it in a way that it can be used for, kids coming out of undergrad or their master's degree, can be used for moms going back to work, can be used for those of us over 50 who are looking for more meaning in our life. And then for people who are even planning, that last job before retirement, or even more meaning in their retirement. But I know we're focused
Mm.
on the over 50 right now today, right?
Yeah. I think that's generally who
Yeah.
listens. Um, can you just like briefly, for those who don't know, what is a recruiter and what's an executive coach?
Sure, sure. So a recruiter is, somebody. So I have done both internal recruiting. So I worked in corporate America where I was the head of recruiting. And so my team would work on every open position that the company had. So we would work on anything from, a director of finance to the chief revenue officer to the CEO, any of those roles. So we were in charge of recruiting, vetting, and bringing in the executives or the people that were in corporate America. Then, when we moved to New York and I had 3 young kids at home, I pivoted to starting my own business. And with that, I was doing executive search. So I was the company, and the recruiters, we would call on the corporate America people or organizations or wherever, nonprofits, whatever it may be. And if they had a need, we would help them fill that need.
Got it.
So that's
Okay.
the recruiting. And then the coaching is truly helping people. The way that we look at it is we're helping people become more humane leaders. We're helping people lead with empathy and grace and meet their people where they are so that they can elevate their entire team and thus then elevate whatever is going on in the organization.
Well, that sounds good. We could use more of that.
Yeah.
So I loved your story of your mom and dad. Can you tell a little
Mhm.
bit about that?
Yes, yes. But as we know, our parents are part of who really shape our lives as young people. And both of my parents were very creative. My mom, even more creative than my dad, but my dad was an ad man, very creative. Was on the team that wrote "You're in Good Hands with Allstate." My mom was a
Wow,
dancer.
that's iconic.
Oh, I know. I still,
I mean, that's
yeah,
yeah, they still use
they
it.
do. And I think of him and I smile every time that I see that logo and that symbol. But also, my mom was an artist and a dancer. And so they were, when we were kids, when we were young, they were living their best life. And then a decision was made that my dad would take over the family business. And I, as a child, probably 10 years old, maybe 12, saw the lights slowly start to go out not in our house because he took on the family business and supported the whole family, but in his heart I saw that work wasn't lighting him up anymore. I saw that creative energy that kept him going just wasn't happening as he was running this business. And I vowed, even at a very very young age, that I just never wanted to see that happen to anyone ever again, and especially at that point not my parents, and then never to myself. So it's kind of been a mission since my childhood to try to help people enjoy what they do.
That's great. Um, so how do you know what your inner light is?
Well, I mean, you and I, we're talking right now and you have a huge smile on your face. I can tell that your inner light is, shining bright as you are interviewing people. I mean, that's part of it, right? So part of it
Right.
is you feel it. I mean, when you are doing things that give you joy, your inner light is shining, right? And so, we all know that not every position gives us 100% joy all the time. But in the book, I talk about the 80-20 rule, right? If 80% of the time you are happy and feeling content and satisfied by the work you're doing, and 20%, you've got to do things that maybe you don't like to do that
Sure.
much, then you're still winning. But that the joy that comes from a job well done, or joy that comes from doing something that you love, is when you can tell your inner light's shining.
hmm And you have exercises in the book. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like a workbook, and I did the questions and so forth, and I think it's very good. It's very helpful. Um, what about age? Like, do employers really want to hire people who are 50, 60, so forth?
Yes, many do. So that's the good news, right?
Yeah.
I would say that there a friend of mine wrote a book called Roar into the Second Half of Your Life, and he's in my book, Michael Clinton. But he said, own your age, right? Own your wisdom. I mean, I'm really think about it. The wisdom that you're bringing to any organization is worth its weight in gold. The relationships, the wisdom, the deep knowing of how something works or how something can thrive. That is a really beautiful thing, and more employers are starting to look at really the great things that people over 50 are bringing to the table.
Mhm. I mean, that's good news because, I do hear a lot of, you know, stories about it's so hard to find a job after 50, but I think you have a good strategy. Maybe people aren't doing some of the things that you recommend. And let's start with like resume, because you say that a resume tells a story with twists and turns. I love that. So how do you tell a story in your resume?
Yeah. So what I like to say is a resume tells me your skills and your story, but the way that you talk to me, your narrative, is what's going to sell me on if I want to hire you or not, right? So I look at, oh gosh, back in the day, right, when you and I were first looking for jobs, and we would, mail a resume, and hope that it got to a hiring manager, and I mean, it was
Right.
snail mail, right? They called it.
No, yeah.
Yeah. Well,
We'd
now,
circle things in the newspaper and
yes,
call them up and
yes. Oh my God, it was great until it wasn't, right?
right.
um, but right now it's really a resume is kind of a calling card, right? It's the thing that will get you in the door, but then it's your LinkedIn profile and how you explain who you are as a human being and how
Mhm.
you went through all the twists and turns of your career that is going to hook, line, and get somebody really interested into you.
So is it better then just to write your own resume rather than hire like a professional? Sounds like it might be.
Well, I think a professional resume writer can help you check the boxes because there's a lot of things to think about with regards to resumes now. The good news is that if you want to write your own resume, you have access to AI, and AI can do a lot of that for you. But
Hmm.
if you are looking to hit the, SEO and the optimization for all the keywords that recruiters look at on LinkedIn and Indeed and places like that, you want somebody who can really know how to systematically put those keywords in for you so that it gets the
Mm.
most amount of eyeballs.
Yeah, wow, that sounds like I don't think I've ever looked for a job in this era where, that was a necessary thing. That sounds like a little overwhelming.
It
So
can be.
yeah, yeah. But you said that there is a number one reason that 88% of resumes are rejected. What's that?
That is ironically, it's having a picture on your resume.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Having a picture is bad.
Yes, because
Why?
it's crazy. But because there's unconscious bias, one, first of all,
Hmm.
right? Somebody doesn't like somebody with blonde hair, somebody doesn't like somebody with curly hair, whatever it is. There's unconscious bias that nobody even knows is happening, right? That's why it's called unconscious
Ah,
bias. But
right.
that, and also it can get kicked out of applicant tracking databases for,
My.
if there's a picture, if there's a misspelled word or something like that. So you don't want to give the algorithm any reason to kick your resume out of the system.
So you should not have a photo on your resume,
No, but
period.
no, but on the flip side, which is really interesting, and I've had this conversation with a lot of people, is you really should have a picture on your LinkedIn profile,
Okay.
right? So that's where your picture should show up.
Okay. Wow. What else should you have on LinkedIn?
Oh my gosh, LinkedIn is well, so LinkedIn's where it's at right now in my mind. I
Yeah.
mean, and that will change in maybe, who knows? In 5 years, it could be something totally different. But right now, LinkedIn is the currency of how people are looking to network and to find jobs. And so to have a robust LinkedIn profile with, once again, keywords, I know it sounds daunting, but people do search through the LinkedIn database and professional picture. I always like if you think about LinkedIn, you've got the picture, but then you have a background, right? Of, behind your bio picture. I always like it if you put something, I think you have elephants maybe on yours.
I think that's on I don't know if that's on that. I think I have, like, some cooking stuff,
Okay.
like cupcakes or things because I also do like cooking things.
Yes. Okay. Yes. I just remembered that you had something very
I
unique,
do have it. Yeah.
on there. And that's what I really like because it gives me a window into who you are as a person. It tells me more about you than your resume does. And
Yeah.
another thing really important is to just make sure that your whole resume is translated onto your LinkedIn profile so that those
What do you
keywords.
mean?
So you take the bulk of your resume and just cut and paste it and put it into your, experience section of your LinkedIn profile so that people can search on the keywords.
Oh, so in the experience section, you want the keywords.
Yes.
Okay. And so you might need to hire a professional to find out the keywords. Can you ask AI the keywords for your
Well,
uh
think about the keywords, right? So think about the things that you do that are meaningful to you. And so the keywords are different for everyone, right? So
sure.
and they can be a bit aspirational too, right? So if you're talking about your background in a clear and concise way, you're putting in the right keywords. So I'm working with a
Okay.
medical director right now, and he has all of the variabilities of the things that he's done throughout his career in medicine and what has driven saving lives and cost savings and things like that. So those are
Mhm.
the keywords that he needs to have in there, including things
Okay.
like pulmonology and electronic ICU and things like that. For you and I, it would be very different. Mine would say leadership, empathy, growth, all kinds of things like that. If that makes sense.
Okay. Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. Okay. Um so what okay, I have what I love this question that you had in the book. What's the power in the question of how can I help?
Hmm. That's my favorite question, Lauren. It disarms people, right? It really, really connects us on a human basis. And I think that we live in a world that is very fast paced, and many people, some people, let's say some people, are in the, thoughts around like, what's in it for me, right? How can you help me? Well, when you
Mhm.
flip that narrative, it disarms people and it connects you as human beings. And who doesn't want to know how they can help somebody else? It's the most fulfilling thing in the world to me is to be able to help another person.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think you gave an example in the book about somebody who was looking for, a job during the pandemic,
Yes.
and can you tell that?
Yes. Oh, Larry, he's one of my favorites.
Larry.
Yes, Larry was midway through our pivot program, our MVP 360 pivot coaching program, which the book is based off of. And we were at this point where we were doing a target list of companies. And we had just started getting him ready for interviews. He had just started interviewing and he lived in San Francisco. So pandemic hits, New York, San Francisco got hit so hard. I mean, San Francisco was shut down maybe
Mhm.
faster than New York, even. And so Larry said, maybe we should just put our coaching program on hold. It is a big investment in time and money and all that. And I said, well, maybe, but we don't know what this means, what this pandemic is going to bring for any of us. So why don't you think of your top 3 companies that you've been talking to thus far and just call the CEO and say, how can I help you? I understand you have an open position. Maybe there's a way that I can help you. And
Hmm.
it literally led him to the job that he's had now for 4 years. No, over 4 years, right? Yeah, he's going on 5 years at this company because he disarmed the CEO. The CEO was like, oh my gosh, nobody's ever asked me that before. Let me think about that and I'll get back to you. And it led to a consulting gig for Larry, which led after 30 days into a full time C-level job.
Hmm. Yes, people have asked me that before, and it really does disarm you. It's like when somebody says, "How can I help you?" You're like, "What? I don't know." Like, that's crazy. What do you mean? Just with no agenda behind it. Like, you can feel if
Yeah.
there's an agenda, but for real, if somebody's offering with no agenda, then, that is powerful. I love that. And I'm glad you reminded me of that because I used to remember that and then I forgot. So I think that's a good one. Um, it just slips away sometimes.
Mhm.
So, what are the 3 P's?
The 3 Ps. Okay, so that is a great question too. This is the target list that Larry and I started putting together right about as a little bit before COVID happened. So, what the 3 Ps are is I say, don't sit back and wait for an opening. Don't sit back and wait for a job to come to you, especially our over 50 somethings, right? We know how to get strategic, we know how to be intentional about things. So instead, create a target list of companies or organizations or professions that you would like to explore. And to me, we always say, this falls into 3 Ps, and the 3 Ps are your usual prospects, right? So anything that is a logical fit for where you might go next. That's in your usual prospect. Maybe a competitor, another company that's similar to yours. But then you look at the pivots, which is a lot more interesting to me and a lot more fun because
Hmm.
that's where you're taking your existing skill set and you're pivoting it into a whole different company, right? For example, when I went from being a television reporter into being a recruiter. That was a massive pivot, right?
Yeah.
But it took my existing skill sets and I was able to translate those into a whole different company and a whole different role. But then my absolute favorite one, Lauren, is your passions. And that is how can you take the things that truly light you up, that you're truly passionate about, and find a way to leverage your existing skill sets in a company that is driven by things that you're passionate about and still make money.
That's the key, I think, because a lot of people are passionate about things that maybe they feel like they can't make money. Is that untrue? Can you really make money no matter what you're passionate about?
Well, I think where there's a will, there's a way. And I would leave no stone unturned in this front, but I have 2 really great stories for you. One is a woman who worked in New York City, and she worked in marketing and media. And we were going through this program and she said, well, I can't get a job in what I'm passionate about. And I said, well, why? Let's talk about what you're passionate about. She was passionate about horses.
Hmm.
So we started going down this path. I said, wait a second, let's explore this. How can we look at opportunities for you to get involved in media and marketing with horses? And eventually, we went through quite a bit of, conversation and exercises around it. But she ended up working at Saratoga Racecourse as their head of media and marketing.
Oh, wow.
So there's
So is that what her background was in originally, media and
Yes,
marketing?
yeah. So that was what she was doing more in the television world, and then we translated it into literally into a race course where she ended up spearheading a program for foals and these horses and how they took care of the horses and how they groomed them to be these beautiful race horses and things like that. I mean, it was really really cool.
Excuse me. Wow, that is cool. I mean, that's something that you think, yeah, that would be a tough one, horses.
Yeah.
Um,
There's a
what I think you said
Yeah.
you had 2. Do
Yeah,
you have another
sorry.
story?
I'll tell you one more. There was another one where another a woman was, in the Midwest, and she was working funny enough, I don't do only media, but these 2 examples are women who were working in media. Her passion was travel, and so we made a list of all the travel-related companies in the town that she lived in, and we ended up getting her after, coaching through a lot of different things. We ended up getting her the head of brand for one of the largest travel related companies in the industry.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
Wow.
her existing skill sets translated into a company that she was passionate about. And now she's traveling all over the world for free
Oh,
with her
wow.
family.
I think that sounds good. I think a lot of people would like that.
Yeah.
Um, okay. Well, sounds like you know what you're doing. I've heard of this before. Tell us a little bit about Ikigai.
Oh, my favorite word, Lauren, my favorite word.
Ikigai.
I
It's so
know.
fun to say.
It is fun to say. It's a mouth.
I'm probably saying it wrong.
No, you're actually saying it right. At least, well, let's ask somebody from Japan.
I know,
Maybe we're
right?
both saying it
We
wrong.
think
I don't know.
but that could
But
be.
the concept is so beautiful, and it's something that, I'm so passionate about. It is the, you know, kind of the if you look at it as a Venn diagram, right? It's the intersection where what you're good at, which is your skills and your natural gifts, intersects with a way that you can make money, but also with what the world needs.
Oh man.
Yeah. Like take a deep breath into that one.
Yeah.
Ugh, if you can make
Yeah.
that happen, it's just pure joy.
I think that there's you have some exercises in your book about this, don't you?
Yes. Mhm.
Or yeah, and there's also I've seen online some worksheets and things like that.
Yes.
It's a really good concept to explore when you're looking to change jobs. Um, so you say that there's no such thing as work-life balance. Why do you say that?
Because one of my very favorite professors at Kellogg, where I went to business school, he actually wrote a book called Your 168, and he talks a lot about a values based life. But Harry Kramer basically said, you know what? There's no separation anymore between work and life. You
Mhm,
have a life, and work is part of that.
mhm.
And so the idea of work life balance, you really have to get rid of that mindset that we all grew up with, right? And think, no, I need a life balance. And work is part of that. But work is
Yeah,
one piece of your life. You also have, maybe a lot of people have spirituality, a lot of people have family, your hobbies, your interests, your work, and whatever else you want out of your life is where you create the balance.
yeah. It's true. I mean, you can't really shut it off anymore,
No, especially not
back in
now.
the day.
Yeah.
No. You used to be able to leave your office. That was it. That was where your phone was and you went home and that was it. But yeah, you're right. There's no more of that. Um Okay, so let's get to like the interview.
Hmm.
So let's say, you make it past the whole resume thing and you get noticed, you get an interview. Um, you talk about quiet confidence first. Let's talk about that. What is that?
Yes, quiet confidence is an inner knowing of the gifts that you're bringing to the table, right? And we all have heard people who like to toot their own horn. And as women, especially, we've been taught not to do that.
Mhm.
Be humble, don't
Right.
brag, all of that. So quiet confidence is truly this inner power, inner knowing of what you're bringing to the table, and along with a humility and a sense of being humble of what you don't bring to the table, too. But being able to describe your greatness, because we all have greatness within us, right? But being able to describe your greatness in a way that's going to speak to people and resonate with people and making sure that it doesn't sound like bragging is really what quiet confidence is.
How do you do that's a little bit hard. Are there
I
tips for doing that?
Well, I would guess you're pretty good at it, Lauren. I mean, you seem to be. It's talking about how you can be of service to another person,
Mhm.
right? How you bring those natural gifts to make a company better, to make a person better, to make a product better, right? So it's not about you, it's about the whole system as a whole. And how can we help each
Mhm.
other as human beings be
Yeah.
better? And when you're talking
Okay.
about your gifts in that way, like, okay, some people might think I'm a gifted writer. I don't know.
You are?
But thank you. But the whole idea of that is that I wanted to bring my natural gifts to help people and to write a book that would help so many people that didn't have access to coaches, that didn't have financial means to get to a coach, right? So
Mhm.
it's about doing things from the right kind of purpose, or
Mhm.
just really thinking about, okay, what does this mean? If I'm putting my gifts out there, how am I helping another person by doing this? And then owning your
Yeah.
natural gifts, right?
Right. Okay, yeah. I mean, that makes a lot of sense and kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier, like how can I help you?
Yes.
Um, in a way, I think it ties back to that.
Yeah.
I really did feel that from your book that you were trying to be helpful. So that actually really did come through a lot in your book. I think that was one reason I did enjoy it, and that's your natural gift. Um, but what if you left your last job for like a really negative reason? How do you talk about that? Because that's such a hard thing without you sounding negative. How do you broach that?
It is.
Or what if they ask you that?
Yeah. I mean, every position that you leave, you definitely have to have a reason why you left, right? And um, let's put it this way: it's not necessarily negative unless you burn the place down and you got kicked out, right? If you left your job to take care of an aging parent, if you left your job because you had a toxic boss, if you left your job because you needed to take a job with more money to support your family, those are all really valid reasons to leave your job. So, kind of thinking about the idea that you're making these decisions for the best, to the best of your ability for this stage of life that you're in, and kind of thinking, okay, this is not necessarily a negative thing. It's more a life choice.
Mhm. I feel like I would be really nervous to say I left because I had a toxic boss, because how do they know that you're not the toxic person? It just seems like that's a really
Yeah.
loaded thing to say.
Well, yes.
But how
So
do you do that?
yes. So I should have taken that a little step further. And, I mean, if you have a toxic boss, you're probably not going to tell your next potential boss that that was the situation, right?
Right.
But you can say, I left for personal reasons. And by the way, legally, they can't ask you what those personal reasons were.
Oh,
Hmm.
really?
Yeah.
And that's not a red flag to say I left for personal reasons?
Not if you're connecting. I mean, and not if you're being honest, right?
Mhm.
I,
Okay.
I believe that honesty is always the best policy.
Okay.
And I think that, you know, there's other ways to kind of, I don't want to, you need to be authentic in your narrative and very honest, but there's also,
Mhm.
I mean, if you had a toxic boss, that boss might have been standing in the way of your promotion, right?
Right.
So the other way to say it is, there were no more growth opportunities for me there.
Okay, that's good, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, 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 to find the truth in it, but in a way that it won't be a red flag.
Yeah.
Because yeah, okay. Obviously, that makes sense. So how do you prepare for an interview? It seems so daunting.
Oh my gosh, you practice and practice and practice and research. You research everything about the company. I mean, we have,
Mhm.
so much data at our fingertips.
Right.
You practice your interviewing, you practice your narrative. I have tons and tons of questions, behavioral interviewing questions in the
Yes.
book that you can use to practice. You
Mm-hmm.
practice in front of your friends, your family, your dog, the mirror, whatever resonates with you. But make sure that you're at a point when you're going into an interview that you have knowledge about the company, you have knowledge about the person you're interviewing with, and that your personal story can flow very naturally in the interview and in the conversation.
Okay. Yeah. I think it's those are I read through a lot of the questions. They're ones that, man, they would catch me off guard, some of them. They're so you really do have to practice uh interviewing questions, I think.
Yes.
Like they really could just throw you for a loop, and you just don't want to sit there and be like, "Huh, that's a good question."
Yes, exactly.
Okay. So let's talk about pivoting, because I think that's where a lot of people are at this age, where they're like, okay, I've done sales my whole life, or I've done this my whole life, and I'd really like to do blah, blah. How, you know, how is it possible to change? Like, you talked a little bit about people changing and going, into something they like, but can you give us a little bit more on that? To do something completely different, it just sounds crazy. What if you don't have an executive coach? Like, what are some things you can do?
Right. Well, then you buy the book. I'm kidding.
Right.
I
No, you
mean, just
do.
buy the book, buy the book. But no, truly, it takes time, right? So if you're going to do a total pivot, you're going to be planning it just like you're planning a vacation, just like you're planning for your kids' college or whatever it is, right? It takes intentionality and it takes planning. And sometimes a pivot also involves maybe taking a couple classes to enhance your existing skill set, volunteering, right? So there's so many people in our 50s who say, I want more meaning.
Right.
And so many people start to think, okay, well, maybe I can, step out and do something in the nonprofit space or much, much more mission driven. Well, what if you don't have nonprofit experience, right? That's when the volunteer comes in. So start volunteering for your favorite nonprofit. Start understanding the inner workings of what is happening at that organization, but also what are they lacking, right? Where are the gaps? And see if your existing skill sets can actually add or help bridge those gaps for them to make them even a better organization.
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea. You got some good ideas, Mary.
Thank you.
Um, I like that. Um, is there anything else you want to say about pivoting? Because it just seems like it's such a, I mean, it probably, like you said, it takes some time, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
some planning.
And I would say very much be patient with yourself, right? I mean, Rome wasn't built in a day.
Hmm.
Our kids didn't grow up overnight, even though it seems like they did, right?
Hmm.
You know, really, really thinking about, okay, I'm going to put together a strategy for the next year. Where do I want to go? But giving yourself grace and being
Hmm.
patient with yourself as you're going through this journey so that you're not expecting it all to happen. I mean, everybody wants a magic pill for something or, I want a
Yeah.
new job that's going to make me so happy. Well, it takes time and it takes deliberate actions to help get you there.
Do you know how long it takes to usually change jobs or careers? Is there like do you know an average time?
I mean, I would give yourself at least a year
Okay.
to really, but I would give yourself probably a little bit more. I'd create like a 1 to 3 year plan,
Mm.
especially once again, Lauren, for those of us or those of you who are listening and me in my 50s, um, you know, thinking about, okay, what is next for me? What do I want? What is that vision I have for myself at age, 55 or at age 60? And then starting to create a little roadmap, right? and
Yeah.
and put just put baby steps in there and things that you can kind of celebrate along the way, right? You want to go and do something in AI. Okay, well, start taking some classes in AI and understand how AI can help people versus how it can scare people, right?
Right. That'd be good. Yes, we need that.
Yeah.
How does you talk a lot about gratitude? How does practicing gratitude play a role in all of this?
Mm, it's everything. I mean, it truly is, right? Gratitude changes the way you think about everything, right? And I know, you and I talked about this before we hit record, but and you could and everyone who buys this book will read about it, but my mother passed away while I was finishing writing this book, and it still brings me to tears. I miss her so
Mm.
much, but I am
Aw.
so grateful that I got to be her daughter, that she taught me to be the person that I am today, and that makes the missing a little bit less, right? And
Mhm.
I'm looking out my window right here where I'm sitting in the Northeast, and I have this beautiful yellow tree and a beautiful red tree. And when the sun shines through those leaves, I am like struck with gratitude for the beauty of life and the
Yeah.
moments, just enjoying those
Yeah.
moments. Not every day is perfect, but there can be perfect moments in your day.
Yeah. For sure. I mean, gratitude's a big part of my life, and it's really comes up all the time on this podcast, and
Mm.
I think that that is part of aging well. It's part of being a badass is really appreciating things. So that's a pretty common theme. Well, I'm going to jump ahead to the questions that I ask everybody. What do you have? I know this is so off topic with what we've been talking about, but do you have one piece of advice for aging well?
Embrace it. Embrace it. It sure beats the alternative, right? We want
Absolutely.
to, first of all, take care of yourself, right? Practice that self-care. Give yourself the same love that you would give to your partner, your parent, your child, and really, really, don't fight it. Roll with it. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I'm now in my mid 50s, and, I'm like embracing, my smile lines, and embracing, the fact that I have
Yep.
more wisdom and I'm more comfortable in my body than I was in my 40s. And
Yep.
so just kind of, embracing every step of the way and not fighting it. And, back to Michael Clinton and his book, Roar into the Second Half of Your Life. Literally, I said to him, well, Michael, 50 is the new 40. And he said, oh, he said, 50 is the new 50.
That's right.
And the sooner we embrace that, the better off we all are.
That's right.
Yeah,
It's true. I think 50 is good.
I do too.
Uh, what do you do for self care? What are some of the things that you like to do?
Oh, I do a lot because I will tell you, running my company, raising three kids, and publishing this book was like three full-time jobs, right?
Oh
This
yeah,
year. And taking care of my mom before she passed was
yeah.
another full-time job. But every morning, I have one. So I have two kids that are out of the house. I have one that is still at home. And every morning after I get him off to school, I meditate and I work out. And I do that. Those are, you know, 80% of the time non-negotiables in my day. Like my husband knows to stay away from me until I'm done.
Yep.
And then I'm off to the races and I can help my clients to the best of my abilities because I'm doing it from a very centered place.
Yeah.
And then at the end of my day, because I tend to I'm either on site with a client or I'm on Zooms back to back, which is really hard on your nervous system. At the end of the day, I take my dog for a walk
Mm.
so that I get fresh air. So I'm starting my day off right and then I'm ending the day right.
Oh, that's good. I like that. Um, do you have what's the best piece of advice you've ever received, not age related?
Mm. This was from a woman, Meryl, who is about 10 years older than I am. And I remember quite a few years ago, I was saying to her, well, I need to do this and I have to do this. And, I'm this, it was a constant to-do list. Right. And she took me by the arms and she looked into my eyes and she said, take a deep breath, Mary. I took a deep breath and she said, stop saying that. You get to do all those things,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
You
Hmm.
flip that narrative in your head and you're like, oh my God, I get to take my child to school. I get to have all
Yes.
these amazing clients. I get to take care of my aging parents because they took care of me.
Mhm. That is good advice.
Yeah.
Um, the next question, I think you might have answered it already, but what did you learn from watching your parents age?
Mm. Well, so my dad was killed in a car accident, so I didn't get
Mm.
to see him age as much as I got to see my mom, but my mom aged with such grace and sparkle, you would not believe it. Like, people that knew her were just blown away by her. She died this year in her this would have been she would have turned 99 this year.
Wow.
And you know what? And this is in the book too. She continued to do her artwork. And up until a couple of years ago, she was still dancing. Yeah, I mean, slower
Wow.
dancing. And then she was dancing with a walker. And then she was dancing from her chair. But even when her hands became too shaky to do her artwork, she started doing collage. So continue to embrace what it is that makes you happy. Continue to embrace what it is that lights you up truly, right? And don't worry about what the rest of the world is doing. I mean, yes, worry about them so that you can help the rest of the world and, make a difference in your
Yeah.
space, but like really march to the beat of your own drum and do what gives you joy. And that will keep you
Mm.
young.
That's so beautiful. You're so lucky that you had a mom like that.
Yeah.
That's such a gift.
Yeah.
Oh,
Gratitude.
really?
I'm
Yeah, yeah.
so grateful that I had her. She's right back there too, if you see that picture of her and I.
Oh,
That was a
yeah. Look at
selfie from
her.
last summer.
Wow,
Yeah,
she does look
she was
great.
pretty hip.
She is
And she
sparkly.
she literally continued to dye her hair too, up
Oh,
until, like,
yeah.
she was like, "I'm
I'm
not
gonna
old."
I'm not old. My hair is still
Yeah,
dark.
yeah.
That's funny. Love it. Um, do you have a favorite health or beauty product?
Mm. Right now, I'm really, really enjoying the brand OG.
Oh, yeah, I've seen
OGEE.
that.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
If you see my blush, I mean, it's
Uh-huh. That's
literally,
very
I
pretty.
really didn't, I like this summer, I didn't walk out of the house without just a little bit of poop toop. And you just smear it all over your face, you rub it in, and you're good to go. And it's all organic.
OG OGEE.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. That sounds I've heard of that. I'll have to check that
Yeah,
out.
I love it.
Do you have a favorite public person that you admire for their approach to aging?
Mm, gosh, for their approach to aging. I'm eager to read Maria Shriver's new book. Do you
Mm,
think because I think her approach to life and family is really great. Trying to
yeah,
think of
I like her a lot.
yeah, I'm trying to think of other people that I follow. She's the one that stands out to me right now. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
she's a good one.
yeah,
I like her. I know I'm asking you such off the wall
that's
questions for
okay.
our conversation that we had.
I love it.
Um, do you have a favorite concert you've ever been to?
Oh my gosh, I have way too many. Okay, let's think. I mean, U2 was pretty amazing. I've seen them
Oh
in concert
yeah.
quite a few times. I do. This is a really funny one. And for a while, she was aging very gracefully. My husband, our second date was at a Madonna concert.
Oh really? How
His neighbor had
fun.
given him fourth row tickets in Chicago to the United Center. And he called me literally out of the blue. He's like, "Do you want to go to Madonna?" And I was like, "What?" I mean, I would go to Madonna with my girlfriends. I didn't think I'd go to Madonna on a date.
With a guy,
Yeah.
yeah. Actually, I saw Madonna with my husband too.
Did
We
you?
saw her in
Yeah.
Hyde Park in London in I think it was about 12 years ago. She she was still like really putting on a show 12 years ago.
Yes.
I don't know about recently, but
Yeah.
yeah, she's a good one.
I mean, when
That's
she
good. Any
was, embracing yoga, her body was like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, really, I haven't seen her lately, or, um, yeah.
Yeah.
But back then, she was
Yeah.
a hot commodity. Yeah,
Yeah,
I would
yeah.
say my other favorite, most recent concert that I was at was Jason Mraz.
Oh, really?
He's fun.
Yeah, he's good.
Yeah,
He's good. I have not seen him in concert. I go to a lot of I live in Austin, and it's the live music capital of the world, as they say, so
Yes.
we go to a ton of shows, but I have not ever seen him. That would be a good one.
Yeah,
I'll look out for him when
I
he comes
wonder,
through.
does Carly Pierce come through Austin?
Carly Pierce, that sounds I don't know who that is.
I saw her in
She's
Nashville, and she was pretty badass. She was like a new
she's
up and comer a couple of years ago.
I feel like I've heard that name, but I'll keep an eye out for her because we go to see a lot of people that we don't know who they are during, have you ever heard of South by
Yes, of
Southwest?
course.
Yeah, it's a big I mean, I remember when that started. I lived in Houston at the time when I was in college. They had the first one and it was just bands and I mean, it's turned into a whole thing now with a tech component and, a film festival and but we just stand in line and we go see all kinds of bands that we don't know who they are and all kinds of films we don't know what they are and you
So
you
cool.
see some really great things just by popping in.
Yeah,
You seen some not great things too, but for the most part, really, really good, interesting bands and people, and I
yeah.
love it.
If they've made it
Yeah,
to
okay.
Austin, they've gotta be at least pretty decent, right?
That's true.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's true. Um, well, I'll keep an eye out for old Carly Pierce
yeah,
if she ever comes through. So, well, thank you, Mary. I think you've been such an eye-opening guest. I love it because I just know there are so many people looking to change careers at this point in life.
yeah.
And it just seems like it's overwhelming. And I think so many times you just hear all the negative things like, oh, nobody wants to hire somebody who's 60 years old. And, they want the younger kids who know all the tech and the social
Mm,
media marketing
yep,
and blah, blah. And, I think you're absolutely spot on that we all have our superpowers. We just have to tap into them.
yes, we have to quietly, confidently tell people about them, right? And
That's
just
right.
own it, own our superpowers, and, and then embrace your network. I'll say that one more time too, because your network, I say your, your light and, who you are and your skills is your superpower, but your network is a super highway that's going to get you to where you need to go. So, really tapping in an organic way to your network is going to really, really help you. Just being very,
Mm.
once again, intentional. You can do this. People listening, you can do this. You can design a life of more meaning, and I have so much faith in you.
Yeah. Well, but we didn't really touch on that. How do you tap into your network? Like, what's one good tip
LinkedIn.
for tapping in?
LinkedIn is a great way.
LinkedIn.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. But and there's a thing that it's not in the book, but I talk about it a lot, and it's called I call it the morning power hour. So that's, if you are looking for a job or looking for what's next with more meaning for yourself, taking an hour where you're researching on LinkedIn, you're curating your LinkedIn newsfeed so that you're following companies that you're interested in, you're following people you're interested in, so that you're starting to get inspired and ideas around that. And then you can start to tap into, okay, maybe you want to go work for Netflix, right? Well, who do I know? Do I have a friend of a friend that works at Netflix? Is there a way that I can have an informational conversation with somebody
Mm.
at Netflix just to see what's happening? So taking an hour of your day with your first cup of tea or your cup of coffee and just really like becoming a student of the world and of the organizations that you're interested in.
Mm. That's good. What, um, oh, I think I lost my question. What was I going to ask you? Oh, is it important to post on LinkedIn?
Yes, great question. Yes, it is if you feel comfortable. So, for the introverts out there, that gets a little bit uncomfortable, but it is very important to be seen, right? And not be seen in the way like, oh, look at me, I have 5 million followers, kind of thing, but like for people to notice you on LinkedIn, you can post or you can comment on people's posts. Or if you don't want to post something of your own, you can reshare a Maria Shriver post or something like that,
Right.
right? So someone
Yeah.
or something that you're very interested in, repost with your comments, your thoughts, and then your network is seeing that you're actively engaged.
Mm. Okay, that's good advice.
Yeah,
All right, well, let's leave it there. Thank you so much for being with us today.
thank you.
And again, her book is What Lights You Up? Such a good book. So, everybody, go take a look at that. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you,
You take
Lauren.
care.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks for listening, friend. From my heart to yours, be well until we meet again.